One minute, my daughter Jessica was telling me to get out and stretch my legs on our mother-daughter trip to Mexico. The next, she was gone. She had left me, her 68-year-old mother, on the side of a deserted road in the middle of the Baja Desert with half a bottle of water and my purse. She'd done it for the money from my house, the home my late husband Frank and I had built together. But Jessica had other plans for my future, and they didn't include me. Standing there, with the heat already starting to press down like a physical weight, I made a promise to myself. I would survive this, and then I would get everything back. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and click the bell. We have new stories every day. Like and comment which city you're watching from. It all started 6 months after Frank passed. My daughter Jessica and our husband Kevin started coming up from Phoenix every weekend. "Just checking on you, Mom," she'd say, fluffing my pillows and reorganizing my pantry. Kevin would handle the yard work, fixing the leaky faucet Frank never got to. They were so attentive, so concerned. "This house is too much for you, Carol," Kevin said one evening, his hand on my shoulder. "All this upkeep. You should be enjoying your retirement, not worrying about property taxes and a new roof." They had a solution, of course. A brand new, luxury 55-plus community just 10 minutes from their place in Scottsdale. It had a pool, a clubhouse, planned activities. They had already taken a tour for me. Jessica showed me a glossy brochure. "Look, Mom, they have a quilting club, and it's all single-level living, no stairs. It's perfect." I was lonely and exhausted from grief. The idea of letting someone else handle everything was intoxicating. The thought of being closer to my only daughter, to my grandkids, was a powerful lure. So I agreed. I agreed to sell my home of 40 years. "We'll take care of all the paperwork, Mom. You don't need the stress," Jessica had insisted, and I let her. I was an open book. Frank had always handled the big financial decisions. I knew where the household accounts were, but deeds, titles, closing costs, it was all a foreign language. Jessica and Kevin became my translators, my protectors. Or so I thought. The first hint that something was wrong, a hint I completely missed at the time, was the notary. They didn't use the real estate agent's trusted title company. Instead, Kevin arranged for a mobile notary to come to the house one afternoon. "It's just more convenient this way," he'd explained. A hurried-looking man in a wrinkled shirt set a stack of papers on my dining room table. Jessica pointed to each signature line. "Sign here, initial there." I remember asking what one document was. "Oh, that's just a standard power of attorney," she said breezily. "It lets us handle the wire transfers and deposits for you, so you don't have to run to the bank a dozen times. It's only for the house sale, of course." I picked up the pen. My hand, the one that could guide a needle through the most intricate quilt patterns, felt clumsy. I signed where she told me to sign. The notary stamped the pages with a heavy thud, packed his bag, and was gone in less than 10 minutes. I never even got his name. The house sold incredibly fast. A cash offer, they said, from an investment company. They told me it closed in 2 weeks. I was busy packing up 4 decades of my life into boxes, labeling them with a black Sharpie, quilting supplies, Frank's books, family photos. I was so consumed with memory and melancholy that I let them handle everything else. Jessica told me the proceeds, a tidy sum of over $500,000 after fees, were being deposited into a new high-yield trust account they had opened in my name. "It'll be safer there and earn better interest until we find your new condo." It all sounded so sensible. I never saw a single closing statement or a bank receipt. I just trusted her. A week after I'd moved my essentials into storage and was staying in Jessica's guest room, she announced the surprise. "Mom, before we get you settled in your new place, let's take a little trip. Just us girls. There's a wonderful little spa resort just south of the border. 3 days of pampering. You deserve it after all this." I was thrilled. A trip with my daughter. It felt like a fresh start. We packed a small overnight bag. I brought a new novel, my sun hat, and my good walking sandals. On the morning we left, I hugged my grandkids goodbye. They were sweet, sleepy-eyed children, and my heart ached with love for them. Kevin gave me a big hug at the door. "You two have fun," he said, smiling. That wide, easy smile of his. "Drive safe, Jess." The drive south on I-10 was normal. We listened to an oldie station, sang along to the mamas and the papas. We talked about the grandkids' school and the color I should paint my new condo's living room. As we got closer to the border, Jessica grew quiet. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I chalked it up to navigating the traffic near the border crossing. We passed through the checkpoint at Nogales with a simple wave. Then, instead of heading towards the coast and the resort towns, she turned onto a smaller state highway, and then onto a smaller one after that. "Scenic route," she said, her voice tight. The pavement gave way to grated dirt. Cacti and brittle, thorny bushes were the only things breaking the monotony of the brown landscape. The sun was relentless. About an hour later, she pulled the car over. There was nothing around. No houses, no other cars, just the dusty road stretching to a shimmering heat haze in both directions. "I think I hear something funny with the tire," she said, not looking at me. "Can you get out for a sec, Mom? I just want to listen." I did as she asked. I stepped out of the air-conditioned car and to a wall of dry heat. My purse was on my lap, so I took it with me. I walked a few feet away and turned to watch her. She never got out of the car. She put it in drive, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Her face was a pale, blank mask, and hit the gas. And that's when my world fell apart. For how long I stood there, I don't know. Minutes? An hour? The shock was a physical thing, a cold blanket of disbelief that did nothing to quell the searing heat. My first coherent thought was, "She'll come back. This is a mistake, a terrible, cruel joke, but she'll turn around." She didn't. The dust settled. The silence came crashing down. My cell phone had no signal, not a single bar. I opened my purse. My wallet was there, with my driver's license, my Medicare card, and about $80 in cash. One bottle of water, half empty, my blood pressure medication, a tube of Revlon lipstick in Cherries in the Snow. That was it. No passport. She had told me I wouldn't need it for a short trip, that my driver's license was enough. Now I knew what. Fear is a primal thing. It strips everything else away. I knew I couldn't stay put. No one would find me here. I picked a direction, the one her car had disappeared in, and started walking. My practical walking sandals filled with grit. The sun beat on my head. I started rationing my water, a tiny sip every 15 minutes. I thought of Frank, I thought of my grandchildren, and I thought of Jessica. How could she? The question pounded in my head with every step. After what felt like an eternity, as my throat grew raw and my vision started to blur at the edges, I heard it. A low rumble. Hope surged through me so hard, I almost collapsed. An ancient, beat-up Ford pickup truck came over a rise, trailing its own cloud of dust. It slowed as it approached me. 2 men were inside, their faces weathered and kind. They didn't speak much English, and my high school Spanish was a distant memory. But desperation is a universal language. "Agua," I rasped. "Por favor. Telefono." "Water. Please. Telephone." They shared their water with me from a big plastic jug. It was the most delicious thing I have ever tasted. They helped me into the cab of their truck and drove me 20 miles to the nearest town, a small village with a 1-room police station, the Policía Municipal. The officer on duty was a young man named Carlos. He saw my distress, my sunburned face, my American driver's license, and immediately understood I was in serious trouble. He brought me more water and a plate of beans and tortillas from his own lunch. With his spotty English and a translation app on his phone, I managed to explain what had happened. I left out the part about it being my own daughter. I was too ashamed. I just said I was robbed and abandoned. He was the one who knew what to do.
He made a call. An hour later, he handed me the phone. A calm, official-sounding woman's voice was on the other end. "This is Maria from the U.S. Consular Agency. Ma'am, can you tell me your name? We're going to help you get home." Tears streamed down my dusty cheeks. I was a survivor. My ordeal in the desert was over, but my real fight, the fight for my life and my home, had only just begun. I was going to uncover every lie, expose every fraudulent document, and take back everything my daughter had stolen from me. She had underestimated her mother. She thought grief had made me weak, but she was about to find out what I was really made of. Stay till the end. I'll show the truth. The journey back was a blur of paperwork and official vehicles. Consular staff arranged for temporary travel documents and a ride to the border. I crossed back into the United States on foot at the Nogales port of entry, carrying nothing but my purse and a piece of paper that proved I was an American citizen. I had $80 to my name and nowhere to go. My house was gone. The money was gone. My daughter, well, the daughter I knew was gone too. A social worker the consulate had contacted met me on the U.S. side. Her name was Angela, and she had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. She took me to a crisis shelter for women in Tucson. It was clean and safe, but the humility of it all was a heavy burden. To go from owning a beautiful home to sleeping on a cot in a shared room was a shock to my system. But I wasn't there to feel sorry for myself. I was there to regroup, to strategize. Angela gave me access to a phone and a computer. That's all I needed to get started. My first call was to my bank, the main branch where Frank and I had been customers for 30 years. I spoke to the manager, a man named David who knew Frank personally. I told him the bare bones of the story, that I suspected my accounts had been compromised. His tone shifted from friendly customer service to serious concern. "Carol, can you come in? I think we need to talk in person," he said. The next day, Angela helped me get a bus pass. I walked into that familiar bank, but I felt like a stranger. In his office, David pulled up my profile. His face grew grim. "Carol, your checking and savings accounts were closed out 3 weeks ago," he told me gently. "All the funds were transferred out." "Transferred where?" My voice was barely a whisper. He swiveled the monitor to face me. There, on the screen, was a transfer order for over $50,000, my entire life savings, wired to an account at a different bank, an account I had never seen before. Then he pulled up another file. It was a scanned copy of the power of attorney document I'd signed on my dining room table. "This document gave your daughter Jessica full authority over your accounts." And that's when I saw the fine print. I had skimmed it that day, but now the words leapt off the page. It wasn't limited to the house sale. It was a durable power of attorney. It gave her sweeping, unlimited control over every dime I owned. But the real shock was seeing my signature. It was off, just a little. It was shaky, where my hand is usually steady from decades of needlework. It looked like the signature of someone frail, confused, or sick. It was a perfect forgery of how my signature might look if I was losing my faculties. It was calculated. It was predatory. David saw the look on my face. "Carol, our fraud department needs to see this. The signature, the circumstances. We can open an investigation. And you need to report this to Adult Protective Services immediately." He wrote down the phone number for me on a piece of official bank letterhead. That small slip of paper became my first piece of ammunition. My next stop was the Maricopa County Recorder's Office. I had to pay $20 for a certified copy of my own deed to my house. The clerk handed me the document, and my hands trembled as I read it. My home had been sold, not to a family, but to an anonymous LLC. The purchase price was listed at $510,000, and there it was again, the official stamp of a notary and another wobbly forged version of my signature on a quitclaim deed dated and filed just 2 days after the sale closed. The notary's name was different from the one on the POA. 2 notaries, 2 documents. It was a web of deceit. That night, back at the shelter, I felt a deep, chilling despair. Jessica had planned this. Every step. The loving concern, the retirement home brochure, the rush paperwork, the fake trust account. She hadn't just stolen my money. She had manufactured a story, a fiction where I was an incompetent old woman who needed her help. She had weaponized my trust, my love for her.
But as I lay there on that narrow cot, the despair hardened into something else. It turned into a cold, clear resolve. She had left me for dead, but I was still here. She had taken my home, but she couldn't take my mind. Frank had always told me I was the sharpest person he knew. "You've seen the details everyone else misses, Carol," he'd say, as he watched me map out a complex quint pattern. It was time to put that skill to use. The next morning, I called the number David had given me. "Adult Protective Services?" A calm voice answered. "How can I help you?" I took a deep breath. "My name is Carol Miller," I said, my voice steady and strong. "And I'd like to report a crime." The woman who answered my call at Adult Protective Services was my angel. Her name was Maria Sanchez, and she wasn't just a caseworker, she was a warrior. She listened to my entire story without interruption, from Kevin fixing my faucet to the dust cloud of Jessica's car in the Mexican desert. When I finished, there was a brief silence on the line. "Carol," she said, her voice filled with a steel I immediately trusted. "What they did to you is not just immoral, it's a felony. Several felonies. We're going to fight this." Maria met me the very next day. She connected me with a lawyer from a senior legal aid society who agreed to take my case pro bono. His name was Mr. Davidson, a quiet, methodical man who radiated competence. For the first time since I'd stepped out of that car, I felt like I had a team. I wasn't alone anymore. Our first order of business was to follow the money. With a police report filed and the APS investigation officially open, Mr. Davidson was able to subpoena bank records. We found the account Jessica and Kevin had opened, the so-called trust, and we saw where the $500,000 had gone. It was like watching a pack of wolves tear into a feast. There was a wire transfer for $80,000 as a down payment on a brand new condo in Henderson, Nevada. Another $65,000 paid in cash for a shiny new Ford F-250 pickup truck for Kevin. There were tens of thousands in credit card payments, Louis Vuitton purses for her, TAG Heuer watches for him. And then we saw it, a charge for over $15,000 to a cruise line. The departure date was 5 days after they had left me in the desert. While I was struggling for my life, they were sipping cocktails on the Lido deck, sailing to the Caribbean. That's when Maria suggested something brilliant. She said, "They're arrogant. People like this, they love to show off. Check their social media." I didn't have a Facebook or Instagram account, but the legal aid office did. An assistant pulled up Jessica's Instagram page. It was public, and it was a goldmine. There they were, grinning into the camera on a balcony overlooking a turquoise sea. The caption read, "Finally taking some much-needed time to relax. So blessed. Hashtag Caribbean Dream." The post was time-stamped. It was the day I was speaking to the consular agent from a dusty police station. Below that post, another one. A picture of Kevin posing proudly in front of his new truck. "My hubby's new ride. Hashtag hard work pays off." Hard work. My blood boiled. I printed every single photo, every smug caption. They were more than just proof of spending. They were proof of their state of mind. They felt no remorse. They felt entitled. They had built their new life on the foundation of my destruction, and they were bragging about it to the world. Keep watching. There will be justice. Next, Mr. Davidson's investigator went to work on the notaries. The first one, who had stamped the power of attorney, was a ghost. His commission had been suspended a year ago for misconduct. The address on his stamp was a P.O. box. He was a fraud, hired for cash to lend an air of legitimacy to a forged document. The second notary, the one on the house deed, was a different story.
He was a legitimate notary working out of a small mail and ship store. At first, he clammed up. But when Mr. Davidson's investigator presented him with the threat of prosecution for aiding and felony fraud, his story changed. Kevin had come in alone with the papers already signed. He'd paid the notary $500 in cash to just stamp the document and backdate it in his journal to a day that Kevin claimed I had been there. The notary, sweating in his little office, signed a sworn affidavit detailing the entire exchange. We had him. We had proof of a criminal conspiracy. But the final, undeniable nail in their coffin was something I found myself. Back at the shelter, I was sorting through the small box of personal items I'd managed to retrieve from my storage unit. In a side pocket of an old travel bag, I found a receipt tin, a little metal box where I kept ticket stubs, receipts from special occasions, little mementos. And there it was, a credit card receipt from my favorite fabric store in Prescott. It was dated April 12th at 2:30 p.m. My heart stopped. April 12th was the date on the forged deed, the one the notary had confessed to backdating. According to that document, I was in Phoenix, signing my house away at 2:30 p.m., but I wasn't. I was 50 miles north in Prescott. I remember that day perfectly. It was the annual sale for my quilting circle, the Prescott Peacemakers. I had bought 3 bolts of rare Japanese indigo cotton. Not only did I have the time-stamped receipt, I was in a dozen photos from the event, which the Quilting Circle posted on their own public Facebook page. There I was, clear as day, holding up a prize-winning quilt, surrounded by my friends at the exact moment Jessica and Kevin claimed I was signing over my life's biggest asset. It was the ultimate checkmate. My alibi was ironclad, witnessed by 30 other quilting ladies who would be more than happy to testify. With the notary's affidavit, the bank records, the social media posts, and my unbreakable alibi, Mr. Davidson presented the case to the district attorney's office. They didn't just accept it, they fast-tracked it. The combination of elder abuse, the brazenness of the fraud, and the sheer cruelty of the abandonment made my case a high priority. Warrants were issued for the arrest of Jessica and Kevin Miller for felony fraud, grand theft, forgery, and conspiracy. I wasn't there when they were arrested at their fancy new condo in Nevada. The police report said they were surprised. I bet they were. They probably thought I had simply vanished into the desert, a sad old woman who got lost, a tragic story that would eventually fade away. They never imagined I would walk out of that desert and methodically dismantle their entire world.
Faced with a mountain of evidence, they took a plea bargain. Kevin, as the orchestrator of the financial fraud, was sentenced to 8 years in state prison. Jessica, for her part in the fraud and for the act of abandonment, received 5 years. They were forced into a restitution agreement. The new condo was sold, the truck was repossessed, their retirement accounts were seized. It wouldn't bring all the money back, not right away, but it was a start. The title insurance company, seeing the clear-cut case of deed fraud, eventually paid out the full insured value of my home. Don't click away, he'll get what's coming. The last time I saw Jessica was at her sentencing. She stood before the judge, crying. She looked at me, her face pleading, but I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a vast, empty space where my love for her used to be. The daughter I had raised, the little girl whose scraped knees I had bandaged and whose fevers I had soothed, was a stranger to me. She had made her choice on that dusty road in Mexico. Now I was making mine. I gave a single, slow nod to Mr. Davidson and turned my back. I walked out of the courtroom and did not look back. The recovery process has been long. It's not just about the money. It's about rebuilding a sense of safety, of trust in the world. I didn't buy another big house. I used the settlement money to buy a lovely, light-filled 2-bedroom condo in my original town, Prescott, in a quiet community where I already knew people. I'm 10 minutes from my quilting circle, and my friends have rallied around me like a human shield. I've spent the last year putting my life back together, piece by piece, like one of my quilts. I adopted a rescue cat, a talkative orange tabby named Frank. My home is filled with the things I love, the smell of baking bread, the vibrant colors of my fabric collection, the quiet company of my cat purring on my lap. I am safe. I am solvent. I am at peace.
Sometimes, other women in my community, widows and single ladies my age, will quietly ask me for advice. They've heard whispers of my story. I don't tell them all the horrifying details. I just tell them this: be involved in your own life. Understand your finances, even if it feels intimidating. Keep your own copies of important papers where no one else can find them. And remember that "I don't want you to have to worry about it" can be the most dangerous sentence you will ever hear. Trusting people is a beautiful thing, but blind trust is an invitation for disaster. What Jessica did broke my heart, but it didn't break my spirit. She took my house, but in the end, I built a new home. She took my money, but I found a wealth of resilience I never knew I had. She tried to take my future, but I'm the one living it, and I intend to enjoy every last precious moment.
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye!